Hi, and welcome to the Oregon Files podcast. Just a disclaimer up front, we are amateur podcasters simply for entertainment. If we misquote or offend, it was not on purpose to do so. Also, we're recording from an attic spare bedroom today, so you may hear kids, dogs, neighbors, what have you. We'll try to edit out what we can. Thank you and enjoy, and here's Elliot Bowman.
Thanks, Mark. I'm very happy that today is Friday. Yeah, I just want to say thank you to Mother Nature for a tricky, sunny but cold day out.
It's been cold.
It's been cold. Well, and it's also been a rough week because I'm mourning the loss of my football team. Mark mentioned this once upon an earlier podcast that I am a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, but things did not go so well last weekend. And I know it's sports, blah, 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 and it is what it is. But, when you latch onto something and you latch onto a sports team, you want them to succeed like your children. And when you have freaking Tom Brady, you expect him to do miracles, which he did towards the end of that game. But it is what it is, and my life will go on.
Full disclosure for the listeners, I had no interest in football until Elliot got me into watching the last couple of years. And
Yeah.
the first team and person I latch onto is the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes.
Yes, congratulations.
No regrets. But all seriousness, Tom Brady is amazing to watch. He still had the best stats in the league. Didn't he have the most passing yards, like over 5,000?
Passing yards and touchdowns.
Ridiculous.
He'll probably be MVP again at 44 years old.
Deserves it. I used to not like him on the Patriots, but I love him on the Bucs.
And then the reports coming out where he wants to spend more time with his family and his wife. No, Tom. No, you get back into that locker room and you get us another championship. Your wife and kids will be there. Yep. Your kids are not that old.
Yeah.
Okay, you give us one more year. One more year run at it. Yep. It's you give us the last dance of Tom Brady, and you go out there and you deliver.
I would do one more year if I was. I saw Big Ben's out.
Yeah,
Big Ben's out, so you don't have to worry about him.
Yeah.
Oof.
That's our football talk for the year.
There you go. Yep. So good. All right. We'll go into first some of our sponsor. Still amazing. Still Video Games Plus and Level Up Frozen Yogurt. Open 7 days a week off Stevens in Roseburg, Oregon. Level Up Frozen Yogurt has new flavors every month, some dairy-free, and over 50 toppings, including fresh fruit. Mm-hmm. And, of course, the video game side, absolutely amazing. They got T-shirts, disc golf.
Pokemon
cards.
Belts, wallets.
Cool people. They got
cool
it all.
People.
One of those cool people, actually, the guy who works there, his name's Brandon, and he is the one responsible for our theme music. So thank you. Shout out to Brandon at galaxygosound@yahoo.com. And reach out to him if you want or new theme music for your podcast. Brandon at galaxygosound@yahoo.com.
Thanks, Brandon.
And then finally, we do have another thank you to shout out to. We have this great, amazing little thing we did with our brochures, this artwork that was freehand.
Logo.
Our logo is amazing. And who did that logo?
That would be the one and only Taylor Bowman, who is going to be 14 on Sunday.
Wow.
I'm sure she'll never listen to this, but happy birthday, Taylor. Yes, she is quite the little artist. She drew our little logo. We have brochures that are slowly in the circulation of around here. So if you see that out there, and if you see the logo, know that's drawn by my daughter, Taylor, who really does have a good knack for art.
Oh, it's a great logo. And it's also our background. If you look us up on YouTube, it is the image that's in our YouTube video. So,
cool.
Yeah.
She, side story, she is in 8th grade and she does art, and then she does applied art, and then she does something called advanced applied art, and it's taught by the same teacher. And I guess the teacher was really kind of giving her a hard time. Like, aren't you already in one of my art classes? Like, I already see you once a day, but...
Now she can brag. It's like, I'm published. I'm part of a podcast crew.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's awesome. Today's topic, is one, I've read this before our last podcast before, and I love the story, but I want to make sure I had all the facts straight because there's a lot of stuff involved with it. But it's on a stagecoach driver by the name of Eyed Charley. And I'm going to tell you all about Eyed Charley.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Nothing like driving with one eye.
It's amazing.
It made me think of One-Eye Willie from Goonies. And went right there to think of the treasure they were looking for was the One-Eye Willie pirate.
Yes.
From Goonies on. Made me think of that, but
you're not
probably
wrong.
No relation, but.
So the information I have, I compiled it. Finn J.D. John, a book called The Whip, which was by Karen Condison, and Charlie's Choice by Fern Hill from Infinity Publishing. So I got it from 3 different sources. I know they compiled their stuff from other sources too. So we got a little good bit of history here. We'll start with how it ties into the Oregon Files podcast, or you know what? Because I like to try and keep it a little Douglas County if I can, right?
Localized.
Yeah. So really, Charlie was a stagecoach driver up and down, really from Salem down to San Francisco and Santa Cruz areas. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The most sought after stagecoach driver.
5-star Uber.
5-star Uber. Only one that can handle 6 horses well. Was good with the whip, and that's where he got the nickname the Whip as well, because good with the whip. Sharpshooter as well, and actually killed a bandit that had robbed him at one point. Saw him again on the trail and shot and killed the guy the second time he saw him. Okay,
learned your lesson. He was a Leo.
Yeah.
Really good cook.
Really good cook. He was. The funny part is the only time he was. There's a quote in here about him, the only time that you couldn't find him is the day after he got paid because he was drunk somewhere, passed out. I love that. And a hangover. So
are we going to learn why he's called One Eye?
You're going to learn why he's called One Eye. You're going to learn everything about
I'm excited.
One-Eyed Charlie.
I'm excited.
So really one of his main stays was actually, he would stop a lot in Roseburg. Okay. On a stagecoach, because that was one of the whole area down there, up and down the I-5. And also the Wolf Creek Tavern.
Okay.
That is just south of the Douglas County line. Mm-hmm. And the Wolf Creek Tavern has its own history too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of haunted stories. I think even like a couple of the ghost shows that are on the bigger networks have gone there.
Wolf Creek's a creepy town.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have like a historic, they have like a really cool historic hotel.
It's also where Jack London stayed. He rented it for a summer. And also Clark Gable used to reserve rooms there too. So you can tell it's an older place. I know a lot of it was built in 1883 actually. And it was built to serve people riding stagecoaches south of California's gold country. Gold was found down in 1848, California. So it kicked off the gold rush. Now, most of the male population of Oregon wanted to go down there and strike it rich. So at first they crossed the Siskiyous on foot. Later they took the coach. And they would take the coach back as well, usually broken, disappointed. Now, when you got on the coach, if you were lucky, you got to ride with a famous driver named One-Eyed Charlie. Last name was Parkhurst, but no one ever referred to him as Parkhurst. It was One-Eyed Charlie. One-Eyed Charlie had been driving a coach since the gold was discovered, at first from San Jose to Santa Cruz, and later over the pass. He drove his team hard, spit his tobacco juice harder, and cussed like Sam Clemens.
What?
I don't know who Sam Clemens is, but apparently he cussed a lot as well.
He was the bar for cussing?
Yeah. Isn't that funny? Sam Clemens is the bar for cussing, and One-Eyed Charlie matched it. The only time he missed work was the day after payday when he'd be too hungover to drive. I love that. He was Curtin Henry, Hell on Wheels, in a game of cards or dice, and possibly the best handler of horse teams in the West. He was not without a sense of civic duty, because in 1868, he went and got himself registered to vote so he could help Ulysses S. Grant clinch the election.
How do we not have a movie about this guy yet?
Oh,
We're serious.
Yes,
this
okay.
This is the tip of it. And this is serious. Mark never tells me anything about what he discusses, the topics and stuff. So
yes, I actually asked you don't look it up because I want that. I want that.
Yeah.
So here we go. So
the wow
factor.
I'm being wowed.
So 1879, after all that hard living, he died at the age of 67. Now here comes the big discovery. At the funeral home, the mortician made an unexpected discovery that Charlie was actually Charlotte and had given birth at one time. Kid you not. The hardest stagecoach driver on the West Coast was, they think it could be transvestite or something like that, but she'd given birth. Her name was Charlotte.
So One-Eyed Charlie
was actually One-Eyed Charlotte. Yes. And now get this, because she was a woman, she's actually the first woman to vote in a presidential election.
Wow.
Isn't that not wild or what? Okay, so Charlie Parkhurst was born Charlotte Darkey Parkhurst in 1812 in Vermont. Mother's name was Mary and Ebenezer.
Wow.
You don't come across Ebenezer anymore.
Unless you're Ebenezer Scrooge.
Yeah. Parkhurst had 2 siblings, Charles and Maria. Her mother, Mary, did die the same year that Charlotte was born. Her brother died shortly after that. And then Charlie and her sister Maria were sent to an orphanage in New Hampshire. And they were raised under the care of a Mr. Millshark. Now, Charlotte ran away from the orphanage at age 12, adopted the name Charlie, and assumed the masculine presentation.
So she was like, what's her face from Game of Thrones?
Isn't that what? Yes. Yep. According to one account, Parkhurst assumed meant a Mr. Balch, who had a stable in Rhode Island. He took Charlotte under his care, but the guy still didn't know that it was a female. Still under the impression that he's pretending now he's a boy.
Mm-hmm.
But this guy took in Charlie and taught her everything, and treating him Parkhurst like a son.
Well, it probably made it easier.
Yes. Yeah.
To get people to trust and not just send her off to whatever, like sewing or whatever, you know what I mean? Like boarding school for women, you know?
It's to be an orphan. I mean, I read things about orphans, having a hard time anyways, but this one, at the age of 12, decided, you know what? I'm not going to make it as a girl. I got sadly, right now in this day and age,
it's a man's world, even then.
Now, this Mr. Balch taught Charlie how to drive a coach, first with 1, then 4, and eventually 6 horses. Charlotte worked for Balch for several years, was a young stagecoach driver in Providence at that time. So Providence, Rhode Island. In 1848, 21-year-old Birch and his close friend Frank Stevens went to California during the gold rush to seek their fortunes. Birch soon began a stagecoach service, starting as a driver with 1 wagon. And then he kind of gradually consolidated several small stagecoach lines into the California Stage Company. So that's when he reached out to Parkhurst, who was now in her late 30s. She left for California, sailing on the RB Forbes from Boston to Panama.
I love RBs.
It's it's capital R, capital B, and then Forbes.
I was hoping it was BRBs.
It's the name of the sailing ship. Now, this was before we had the Panama Canal. She actually had to get off and cover what's called an isthmus overland and pick up on another ship on the West Coast.
Dang.
Yes. While in Panama, Parkhurst met John Morton, returning to San Francisco, where he owned a dry age business. Dry age business? Yeah, dry stuff.
Like dry goods.
Yeah, probably. Morton recruited the driver for work. And then shortly after reaching California, Charlotte lost the use of one eye after a kick from a horse, leading to the nickname One-Eyed Charlie or Cockeyed Charlie.
And she's still pretending to be a guy at
Still
this
pretending
point?
to be a guy at this point. Lost an eye. But remember, she got all this training from the East Coast on how to be a stagecoach driver, and there was a desperate need at the West Coast at that time.
And there probably weren't a lot of women stagecoach drivers.
There were none. And it's the funny part.
So she saw the opportunity of, well, as long as I pretend I'll be a guy, then nobody's going to turn down my business.
You're exactly
How
right.
do you order a stagecoach back then?
It's on demand. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you got to schedule it. You got to pay a lot of money because the good ones will protect you and protect your goods.
Yeah.
If you don't have a good one, they can go right off the road. And they show some of the roads that she used to ride, and they're narrow roads. And even the car would be tricky. So she's navigating these horses. She was that good. She had a good rapport with the horses, was actually good with kids because there's reports that a pouch with candy, we give it to kids. All kinds of cool stories from there. We're going to get into a couple more here in a minute. Of course, went to work for Birch. He developed a reputation as one of the finest stagecoach drivers. 6-Horse Charlie was another nickname. So she had all these kind of nicknames, which I loved. So among Charlie's routes in Northern California were Stockton to Mariposa, the great stage route from San Jose to Oakland, and San Jose to Santa Cruz, and all the way up to Salem, Oregon. Stagecoach drivers carried mail as well as passengers and had to deal with holdup attempts, bad weather, and perilous primitive trails. It was a dangerous era and dangerous country where dangerous conditions were the norm. Now, Charlie became known for her talents managing horses and using the whips. Charlie also developed sharpshooting skills necessary for fending off would-be robbers. One famous criminal named Sugarfoot, which we're going to look him up later, Sugarfoot, held up Charlie's coach at one point, and when he attempted to rob Charlie again 6 months later, Charlie shot him dead with one eye while steering 6 horses.
Man.
The stagecoach driving was so precise that she was able to hit a silver $50 placed in the street as a target.
What?
With both wheels on either side of the rig. And with a whip, she could slice open an envelope from 15 feet away.
She's like Annie Oakley.
It's ridiculous. She could also whip a cigar out of a man's mouth or similar distance without touching him.
Could you? I couldn't even imagine.
One-eyed, pretending to be a guy and has these credentials.
Abilities, though, like that.
Yeah. One historian, Ed Sams, wrote in his 2014 book, The Real Mountain Charlie, that she actually wore long-fingered beaded gloves to hide her feminine hands.
Smart.
And she was considered one of the safest stagecoach drivers, not a daredevil like so many of her contemporaries, and had a special rapport with the horses. Now, seeing the railroads, though, were cutting into the stagecoach business. Charlie did retire from driving some years and moved to Watsonville, California. And for the last 15 years of her life, she raised chickens. In the last 6 months, moved into a small cabin and suffered from rheumatism. And really what her death certificates, 2 things on her death certificate was rheumatism and tongue cancer. But
Probably from chewing tobacco or whatever.
Yeah. Parkhurst died on December 18th, 1879. And it was after she died, neighbors came to the cabin with the mortician to lay out the body, all that kind of stuff, and discovered she was female. Trunk in the house contained a baby's dress.
I was going to say, so did she have a baby that maybe just died at birth, or they don't know? Or
they don't know. That's the hard part with a lot of this stuff here. So the mortician he's the only one to claim, after examining the body, that she had a baby. The dress is kind of a scary thing too. Back then, it's really hard. I would draw the conclusions that she had something bad happen to her,
right.
and the baby was, but the baby dress really puts that stamp on it, because that's just wild.
I wonder if she met anyone throughout her life that she had to make them swear like secrecy, like,
yeah,
if you tell anyone, there's a reason why my name's Whip.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, with one eye and everything like that.
Right.
It just
sounds scary and awesome at the same time.
Yes. When it came out in newspapers, it was very scandalous. Like, no one believed it, because
that she was a woman.
Eyed Charley was already famous up and down for being the best.
She was like a celebrity, like a celebrity stagecoach driver.
Yeah, but boy, they did not like finding out that she was a woman.
Really?
And so there's a lot of angry people writing things like, well, that's, how dare you, that kind of stuff. But the cool part was there's some people that stepped forward saying, look, there's too many accounts of her bravery and what she was able to accomplish. It's all true stories. So that's the cool part. So,
right.
Some people were upset about it, but
I wonder if she was born a guy, would she still have had the same type of life? Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, cause I'm sure she felt like she had to work twice as hard and do twice as much to kind of put
so much so
that masquerade, on.
I'd like to know what happened to her sister. Cause to me, that's so sad that her sibling to go in an orphanage and then, so I want to know about that. Charlie could have been a transgendered man or other figure in the trans history. It's going to be one of the big ones. Registered 2 votes in the election of 1868. And there's some people who say that she never cast a vote. Others say that she did. If she is, she's the first woman to vote in U.S. history. And actually, there's a fire station in Soquel, California, has a plaque reading that she was the first one.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that part's really cool there. So there's some memorials here and there. In 2007, the Santa Cruz County Redevelopment Agency oversaw the completion of the Parkhurst Terrace Apartments, named for the stagecoach driver, located a mile along the old stage route from the place
Interesting.
of her death.
So she was actually really famous.
Yes. Oh, yeah. There's plaques.
Like, her legacy is even carried on till today. I mean,
yes, very big
interesting
thing. Old, a lot of stuff for the LGBTQ community from history, which I love. The grave site is now real popular to visit for people. There's even they were able to find her mom's gravestone in New England. So pretty cool little story with her.
That is cool. I love learning about characters like that.
Yes.
And I love, there's just so much periods of time and just points of history and just different people that you would never knew that existed.
Yes.
Even if we didn't do this, I have no idea. And it's super fascinating. And we talked about what part of history you would go back and visit. I mean, for me, it's the Wild West.
Oh, absolutely.
Even the characters like Wyatt Earp and all those people, but people like Eyed Charley, you would never know existed unless you lived during that time frame.
One of the stories I'm looking into it's a crazy true story. It makes The Revenant with Leonardo DiCaprio look like a walk in the park.
Oh my gosh.
So that's a future episode.
Yeah. That's a teaser.
That's a teaser. There you go. But Eyed Charley is Eyed Charlotte.
Awesome, Mark.
Yes, very good stuff. I wish this is one of those ones that should be a movie. Phenomenal story. I mean, looking at some of these people couldn't make it living on their own street. And then you have these other people who at a young age goes from New England through Panama before the Panama Canal's even there, crosses the land, comes up on a boat, and then still survives, gets kicked in the head by a horse. Right. Whatever.
Well, it's a different time period too.
Shifts to me. You got to be tough.
They had to do what they had to do.
Yeah.
There's just survival of the fittest, really. And I'm sure she knew that she had to make something of her life.
Yeah.
I mean, you're orphaned at 12 or however old she was orphaned. Yeah. She ran away. She was 12. I mean, why not just try to make the most of it? And if you're taught all those, the trade of being a good handler of horses and stagecoach and shoot.
Yes. Knowing a trade helps so much.
Right.
You know, this
Exactly.
solidify that. Yeah. Very true.
And, being good at spitting tobacco and,
Yep.
wasting away your... I wonder how much... Did you say how much you got paid or anything like that?
No, sadly I didn't see that in here too. Sometimes a lot of those records are lost through time. That's what's so hard with a lot of stuff. You're relying on sometimes people, what they barely remember and that kind of stuff. So it's you always gotta be careful with some of this historical stuff, because sometimes the fact when the legend becomes fact, print the legend.
Right.
Yeah.
You might be right.
Yeah.
Legend becomes fact, print the legend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
It's a great quote.
Right. Well, speaking of some stagecoaching, I have a little history on stagecoaches, which is so exciting to hear. I will make it as exciting as I can.
Yes.
So the first type of stagecoaches were actually called the Concorde stagecoaches. They were built in 1827, and they cost between $1,200 and $1,500.
Okay.
It doesn't say how much that is in today's money, but I've got to imagine that's a pretty penny.
Yeah.
These coaches weighed more than 2,000 pounds. There's a company named the Abbott Downing Company employed leather strap braces under their stagecoaches, which gave a swinging motion instead of the jolting up and down of the spring suspension.
That makes sense.
I think when I think about stagecoach, that's what I almost think about, like the underneath.
Yeah.
Like the swinging motion. The company manufactured over 40 different types of carriages and wagons at the wagon factory in Concord. It was like the Ford of stagecoaches.
That's crazy.
Most of the time, the Abbott Downing Company employed about 300 people. All of them were men except for one. From 1865 to 1895, Marie F. Putnam stitched leather seats and trim to every stagecoach that rolled out the Concord factory, including those purchased by Wells Fargo and Company for the entire 30 years. She was the company's only female employee, which is super cool to read that because she could have been...
Charlie could have sat on one of those. That is an amazing
How
connection.
cool is that?
I love it.
Yeah, she was the only woman that worked at that company.
Oh,
and then Charlie or Charlotte could have been riding that coach that she stitched on.
Mind blown.
Super interesting.
Love it.
So each coach was given a number by the Abbott Downing factory. The Concorde coaches had a reputation for being sturdy, roomy, and comfortable, like a Lincoln. At the front and back of the stagecoach were leather boots where baggage, mail, and valuables were stored during the journey, with a reminder of the luggage being placed on top of the coach. Sometimes even passengers sat on top of the coach, but most chose to endure the rugged trip inside, even if it wasn't too crowded. If it was a single stagecoach, it would hold up about 9 passengers and a dozen or more on the roof.
Wow. Poor horse.
A dozen or more on the roof. The windows of a stagecoach had leather roll-down curtains.
Okay.
And 3 leather-covered seats that offered little legroom. Man, most travelers had about 15 inches to squeeze themselves into. The coach carried a capacity of 9 passengers. So that is probably where the term airplane coach, probably where that gets some of that from.
They didn't smell that good too. I think it's one drawback.
Oh man. Yeah. And no air conditioning or anything like that.
No conditioning,
you just got a little window you roll down.
Gosh.
Everyone's smoking and chewing tobacco back then.
Beans,
right. Let's see here. So the person that got stuck in the middle usually had the worst of it because there was no back support. Instead, they had to hold on to the leather straps that hung from the ceiling, and the average speed was only about 8 miles an hour. So I guess you're not going. So I guess you're traveling say you're going on a 500-mile journey, and you have no back. You're just holding onto a leather strap. No thanks. A sample fare schedule posted at Lincoln, New Hampshire. For first class, it was $7. If you're going to ride all the way. Second class had to walk at bad places on the road. Third class, same as above, but they also had to push up hills.
That's amazing. I think it helped push a discount on this ticket.
Right.
Can you imagine if that applied today? You help push the airplane up.
Right. I love that. I had to walk at bad places on the road, man. During the Civil War, when sectional tensions were tearing the United States apart, stagecoaches provided regular transportation and communication between St. Louis, Missouri, and the East and San Francisco, California, in the West.
Yep. So then, San Francisco's right where
Yeah.
Yeah, Charlie came in. Yep.
So, mail delivery. So, a lot of us think about the Pony Express. It gets a lot of credit for often being the first mail line across the North America continent, from the Missouri to the Pacific. But in fact, the Butterfield stage predated the Pony Express by nearly 3 years. This Butterfield Overland stage began rolling on September 15th, 1858, when the twice-weekly mail service began. A Butterfield Overland Concord stagecoach was started in San Francisco and another Overland stage in Tipton, Missouri, where they ran over the better roads.
Okay.
Cool. As the going got rougher, the passengers in the mail were transferred to celerity wagons.
Okay.
Designed for the roughest conditions. Each run composed about 2,812 miles and had to be completed in 25 days or less in order to qualify for the $600,000 government grant for mail service.
Wow.
Dang. The last American chapter in the use of stagecoaches took place between 1890 and 1915. In the end, it was the motor bus, not the train, that caused the final disuse of the horse-drawn vehicles. After main railroad lines were established, it was frequently not practical to go a place of higher elevation by rail lines if the distance was short. But in 1918, stagecoaches were only operating in a few mountain resorts or western national parks.
Wow.
As part of the Old West romance for tours.
That's amazing. Does it say where the last in-service one was?
No.
Like Alaska or something.
Right. So those are inserts from a couple different sources. Journey from St. Paul to Crow Wing, Minnesota. Overland Journey from San Francisco to New York by the way of, Salt Lake City. And then Captain Silas St. John, pioneer mail stage and railroad man of the frontier in the early 1850s. And names in 1950 Journal of John Balehock. Okay. Just to get the sources there. Okay. All right. And then a little bit of a stagecoach decorum.
Ooh,
so
okay.
You have to, if you're going to ride a stagecoach back in the day, you got to know a little bit about stagecoaching. So while today's travelers may be put off by the increased security hassles of air travel, consider what travelers had to be put up during the days of when stagecoaches rumbled through Arizona and the parts of the West. In the late 19th century, travelers on the Butterfield stage line discovered that discomfort of close quarters, dusty trails, and lonely stage stations, as well as the threat of Indian attacks and outlaw robbers.
Wow.
But as hard as travelers was in those days, the Old West still had a code of etiquette for stagecoach passengers. Here are some of the rules stagecoach travel during the 1870s.
No nudity.
I'm getting there. When a driver asked a passenger to get out and walk, one was advised to do so and not grumble about it.
I love it.
You can't grumble about it. I mean, it didn't say what happened if you grumbled. You got left where you're at.
No,
probably.
is it the driver making the request or horse is like, look, man,
Right.
That guy's really heavy.
Right. If the team of horses ran away, it was better to sit in the coach because most passengers who jumped were seriously injured.
Wow. Okay.
Smoking and spitting on the leeward side of the coach was discouraged.
Which side is the leeward side?
No idea.
That's amazing.
Drinking spirits were allowed, so you can drink.
Okay.
But passengers were expected to share. So you had to...
That's my favorite rule.
Bring
enough for everybody?
Right, yeah. You had to share.
That's
right?
Awesome.
Swearing was not allowed, and neither was sleeping on your neighbor's shoulder. So, like in today's coach and airplanes, I've been
on a Greyhound bus and been on someone's shoulder for somebody, yeah.
Travelers shouldn't point out spots where murderers had occurred, especially when delicate passengers were aboard. So you never know. You never know who you sit next to. It could have been their uncle that got killed.
That's
right?
Funny. That's fair. Okay. Love it.
And the last one is greasing one's hair was discouraged because dust would stick to it. I'm going to assume that's probably like the early days of mousse and hairspray and greasing one's hair. So,
but you could be nude, apparently. That's
apparently nudity was not frowned upon as long as you're sharing your
as long as you're sharing
your sarsaparilla and your whiskey.
That's awesome. Very good stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, that's some of the most random things you'll ever learn about Stagecoach.
Yeah.
And, in case you needed to know about that, everyone. And to go with the topic of stagecoaches, I have 5 celebrity tombstones that I found that has nothing to do with stagecoaches. I just made that up.
It fits the Western theme, right?
Sure.
Yeah,
And dying from things from stagecoach related.
Yeah, stagecoach related deaths, which is still
right.
Did you watch it? There's a show called 1883.
Nah.
It's like a prequel
It's
to
like
Yellowstone.
No.
Here's the deal. It's great because it's got Sam Elliott playing
It's related to Oregon too.
It is, yeah. They're trying to do the Oregon Trail. Sam Elliott's great because it's just Sam Elliott being a cowboy. Like
right. I love Sam Elliott.
I don't even think he realizes there's cameras on him. I think he's just being Sam Elliott.
He's actually my ringtone.
Is he really?
No, he's
not. Okay. He's great. Tim McGraw's one of those guys. I mean, he's a country singer, handsome guy, and is also now a fun actor. But that show does not go lightly. It's one of those, like, every bad thing that happens is possible. And sure enough, stagecoaches, people would run over by stagecoaches.
Really?
The river takes them and that kind of stuff.
So it's like Oregon Trail?
It's like
real life Oregon Trail?
Very much so, yeah.
So we all know who Mel Blanc is?
Yes.
Did I say that right?
Is it Mel Blanc?
Mel Blanc.
Oh, boy.
So his tombstone says, that's all, folks.
Amazing.
Rodney Dangerfield, his says, there goes the neighborhood.
Yes. Rodney Dangerfield.
Jack Lemmon, his just says in. Jack Lemmon in, like, when you're starring in a movie, it just says Jack Lemmon in.
And because this is great.
And just quotes, yes.
That's amazing. That's funny.
Merv Griffin, the great Merv Griffin.
Yeah.
I will not be right back after this message.
Wow. That's good.
And Billy Wilder, who's known for writing. Okay, so Billy Wilder wrote Some Like It's Hot. And this is my favorite one, on his tombstone says, I'm a writer, but then nobody's perfect. Boom. Those are our headlines. We do that's our headlines for the podcast.
The only funny headstone one I ever saw was it just happened to be how they were placed in the cemetery.
Yeah.
But one person's last name was Pizza and the person next to him was Toppings. So it was Pizza Toppings.
That's perfect.
I thought that was great. I'm like, that's not an accident.
I saw one where it was I wanted a pyramid.
Yes.
The Egyptians were buried in a pyramid.
That's wild. Yeah.
This episode, it was my turn to come up with. If you listened to last episode, you heard that we had a little 2-question questionnaire for Mark and myself. And again, if you listen to the show and you think of a couple questions you would like us to discuss, no political or religion, just fun topics, you can email our show. It's just Oregon Files Podcast
at yahoo.com.
Oregon Files Podcast at yahoo.com. So this week I asked Mark what fictional and non-fictional family would you want to join?
Such a good question. And I'll be honest with you, the first, and I have a very sweet answer for non-fictional. So real life family. And this is interesting because I would actually pick my family.
Okay, I knew you were going to say that.
And
I knew you were going to say that.
And it's the funny thing. I would go backwards a little bit and maybe just spend more time with my family. Like, I've two-thirds of my kids have moved out of the house, and I've worked a lot, but you have to work to support your family. So then I wish I was there and did more things with them, that kind of stuff. So that would be it. I really love my family. I lucked out with who I love my family to death. And I even wish I spent more time with my brothers and sisters. They both moved away a little bit. So, so it's just one of those things. Just time is the one thing you can't get back.
Family's important.
So that's just it. My family's so cool. My kids are cooler than I was at that age. Like I'm a nerd. I was a nerd in high school, that kind of stuff.
Right.
But my kids are like the cool kids and that kind of stuff. I always feel so. No, I wish I would have spent more time with them.
Well, good answer.
It's a good answer. Yeah, that's where that one is. And then,
geez, now I'm going to sound like a jerk.
Well, here's the flip side.
I'm not gonna have to change my. Man.
So when you said non-fictional family, sadly, the first thing I went to is comic books. I'm like, it would either be the Fantastic Four or the X-Men. And it's just because that's the other thing I grew up on was those kind of things, that camaraderie and that kind of thing.
Right.
I couldn't think. I kept trying to think of other non-fictional families, but I'm not even that big fan of the Fantastic Four. So I don't know. I think the X-Men and that kind of stuff, sadly the mansion just gets destroyed every 12 issues. But I just always liked being part of a team thing. So those are my answers. How about you, Al? Who would be your...
So for fictional, I'm going to go Skywalkers.
Oh, good call.
You're born into a family you already have some sort of ability. Okay.
Okay.
We know that...
you're going to lose a hand, but that's just part of the course.
That's okay. And I mean, they're all on different planets.
Yeah.
So you're already part of the old cosmos.
That's fun.
And
that's a good one. Yeah. No, that's pretty good.
Who
one.
wouldn't want to be a Jedi, right?
Yeah. That's good.
I could even just be like the crazy uncle,
Crazy crazy Uncle Jedi. Yeah.
Right. I don't even have to be a cool like Skywalker. You know what I mean? I can just be the guy, at the pub somewhere. And then a nonfiction, so real life.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go Gordon Ramsay's Family.
Is this for the food?
This is for the food.
I respect it all day. It's not a bad call.
Every holiday.
Yeah.
Be so fantastic, and he seems like a pretty cool guy. So,
God, I might. That's a pretty good one.
And then I guess 1B to that question, I guess would be my family. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Because then I'm thinking, okay, well, Martha Stewart would probably put up a really good spread for the holidays.
Right. I'm just thinking. If I always think with my stomach, I'm like, what celebrity what family would I join that would just be. Even like going there like on a Tuesday night, like Taco Tuesdays are probably like
great.
Like homemade tortillas and like home, the carnitas and like everything's probably just like, been made for the last like 6 hours. And
man, I might switch.
Those are my choices. No. You got a sweet answer in there. So.
With food in the holidays. That's
right. Food.
It's a good question. Very good question.
Right.
Yeah.
So those are mine. And then we'll think of some for the next time. Actually, no. The next time, I said this last time, the next time we're going to have a guest on. Yes. So you don't have to hear me and Mark ramble and bumble and mumble our way through these episodes.
Yeah, special guest coming.
Side note on that, I will say this until the last episode, if we ever stop recording this, I just appreciate everyone listening to this.
Yes.
Everyone that gives feedback, everyone that downloads, even if you listen to it and you're like, it's not for me, at least I appreciate just giving it a try.
Yeah.
And it's just Mark and I, you would laugh at how hard it is for myself to try to even get the audio going at the start of these podcasts. But no, I truly do. We just truly appreciate it. And, I was going to say something else. Now I even can't remember.
No, that's perfect. Yes, no, I very much so. Thank you so much for the listeners. That kind of stuff. My wife gives me good feedback. She'll listen to an episode. Tells me that, I'm not close enough to the mic. That you're the funny one. I get that a lot.
Yes, that's where I was going with that.
Yeah, you're the funny one.
No.
I need to slow down when I talk. I wish she keeps saying I wish I dressed better, but I keep trying to tell her it's a podcast and I'm not on camera.
So yes, we will have guests. We have 2 lined up. Mm-hmm. The first guest, not going to spoil anything. Yeah, no
spoilers. But something could happen.
But it's going to be a good guest, and then down the road we will have good people so you guys can hear other people. And even though this is a local podcast, I think a lot of the people that we talk to will still, resonate with more people outside of Oregon. So that's what we're kind of hoping for. So anyway, you can check out our podcast on, obviously you're listening to this, but if people want to know where we get to know where you can get it, we have a Facebook page, Oregon Files Podcast, Spotify, Alexa, Amazon, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, anywhere you get your podcast, you can hear us.
Yep. We're even on YouTube for free. You type in Oregon Files Podcast, YouTube.
Yeah, you can just Google it, and I hope you enjoy. Hope you enjoy listening to this. So
yeah, thank you guys. Have a good one.
Thank you so much. Cheers.